everybody. I've tried to record this video before, but the video file ended up being like an hour and a half long, so I'm trying it again, hoping that it goes a little less time. This is my personal tier list of the Elden Ring bosses, and to note, I'm going to be completely subjective here. There is not going to be much objectivity. There's going to be a little, but for the most part, these are just my personal feelings, how much I enjoy these fights, and what I think of them. I've tried this before, like I said, but it was a different tier list, and that tier list had so many of the filler bosses on it. It was such a big list, and it was so just outrageous. So I've got a much smaller one here, and we're going to try this one. Without further ado, let's hop into it. I also, last time recording this, had problems with ads on the sides. Here I've actually taken the time and effort to cut those out. So let's do this. I guess we're going to start with Ranala, Queen of the Full Moon. I love this fight. This one was so cool. My biggest complaint with it is that I feel like she just doesn't have enough health. She's a little too easy. But like, man, when I was doing my stream playthrough, obviously it was my first time playing the game and my first time seeing this boss. It took me first off, there was phase 1, which was kind of like if Deacons of the Deep wasn't stupid. I don't have any complaints about phase 1, other than sometimes they'll just hide it'll just hide the imps or the like children or whatever they are behind things and in the background, so it's kind of hard to see them sometimes, but like that's kind of the point. But other than that, I don't really have any complaints about the first phase, but I don't really have any like praises to sing either. It's fine. It's one of the only times I've ever seen them do like a decent puzzle fight, which FromSoft is historically terrible with. So yeah, I like that phase. And then phase 2 is one of the coolest things ever. She's like standing on this massive lake, basically like Rom's arena, or Rom from Bloodborne, but like just saturated in the night sky with the full moon, and it looks gorgeous. And then she's just standing there in front of you, ready to blast your ass with spells. Then you can see in my live stream playthrough, when she first summons I think she summoned the Forlorn Hound, or the Night Hound, whatever he's called. And I was like, oh, so there's just gonna be that guy here? Why? And then after a few seconds, he like went away, and I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. That's a super neat caveat to the fight. She'll just summon temporary help. That is a really cool way of doing that, because not only does it mean you don't have to deal with the thing for long, but it also means that the gank, not only it'll take a break from ganking you, but the gank will change from what's ganking you. So it'll go from like the Night Hound to a dragon to a troll to like 3 wolves. It's super cool. I'm gonna put Ranala in A tier because there's still the problem that she's a little too easy. Godric the Grafted. So this is a really solid early game boss fight because he's not absurdly difficult. In fact, that's one of my big complaints again, is that it's a little too easy. But there again, if you have never seen it before, it's absurdly difficult. But once you know his tricks, it's super easy. And that's part of it's like, that's probably how a Souls-like boss should feel. The other part of it is, man, I want at least a little bit of challenge on repeat playthroughs, so there's back and forth to be had there, but otherwise, It's a really solid fight. It presents enough challenge. That phase 2 transformation took me off guard so bad the first time I saw it that it promptly died and had to reassess who I was. It was so funny the first time he did that. I'm going to stick Godric up in A tier. I really like Godric. Commander Niall. I hate this guy. The problem with Commander Niall is that, like, I think he should have been solo. I don't think he should have been summoning, because solo, he's actually kind of an interesting fight. He's big, he's slow, and he hits like a truck, which is all fair. And he's got plenty of health. He's got plenty upon plenty of defense. Getting that armor set is like, what, the second or third highest defense in the game. Like, He has enough things to do. His timings are really weird to nail down. But the big problem is the gank. It's not only him who is already a tough enemy, but he will summon 2 what are they called? Silver Knights, which they're really tough to bring down. They're not easy enemies, especially the Turnstile Turtle Great Shield one. That guy's annoying. Yeah, the Silver Knights are just really annoying to try and deal with while he's also there, which is why I would never fight this guy without summoning at least the Ashes. I don't like summoning other players, but the Spirit Ashes, absolutely. Yeah, I just hate this guy. However, he on his own is a super cool fight. Once you can get rid of those Silver Knights, he'll go into phase 2 where he gets a Lightning Stomp AoE. And to be fair, the AoE either will go too long or is too big sometimes. But other than that, it's a super interesting thing to try and adapt to, is fighting him on his own. And him on his own, like I said, is super cool. I love him on his own, and I wish the fight had just been him. But it's not. It's his 2 friends. So I'm putting him in C-. By the way, I got a C+ and a C- because the last time I did this, there were some in C that felt like they should have been slightly... it feels like, they're not quite D. D is like almost bottom of the barrel, but they're not quite B, because B feels like we're starting to get to like really decent boss fights. And C is just like the middle of the road, except some of the C's felt better than others, so I decided to put in a C+ and a C-. And that's pretty much why. Loretta, Knight of the Halig Tree. Actually, there's a good example of why I wanted a C+. Because Loretta is not a bad fight. It's just I don't have too much to say about it. Loretta has a bunch of interesting mechanics to her. She can get you from range. She can get in your face and mess you up. The problem with that is that whenever a boss in this game has the chance to get you from range, that means half of the fight is going to be running back to them. Is going to be getting back in their faces and keep going. So you'll see probably a lot of these bosses that have ranged attacks are probably going somewhere in the C's, just because they're kind of irritating to deal with. There's another example. The Red Wolf of Radigan. The Red Wolf of Radigan spends way too much time out of your range and is a little too fast. But it is one thing that I've kind of been looking or been asking for a while, is a boss fight that is fast instead of tanky. Because if I remember correctly, my first playthrough on stream, I killed him in like 3 hits. He was nothing. I breezed through him. I was just dead. So he is a glass cannon, but it's hard to catch up with him, which is kind of a fun mechanic to me, because, it's not unfair where it's like, you're constantly just running back to this guy, and it feels like, hours. It's like Malekith. We'll get to him. But, yeah, it's not like Malekith where he keeps running out of your range, or any of the dragon fights, actually, where they keep just going away from you and you have to chase them back down while they fire at you from afar. It's not like that. He will constantly, circle around you and fire spells at you, and then sometimes he'll be brave enough to get in your face. It's almost like fighting yourself, wherein it's tactically thinking of, okay, when do I go in for attack, when do I back off and shoot range, It's an interesting fight. The problem is it can either be too easy or too hard depending on your build. And there's not really an in-between. There's not a perfect difficulty here. It's just either too easy or too hard. I'm still going to throw it at B, though, because looking at it from a design perspective, it's really cool. The Godskin Apostle... The Godskin Apostle is one of the weirdest things. It's so funny watching this guy just... Hi. And just get in your face like Mr. Fantastic. He's... my big problem with the Godskin Apostle is that he's got just a bit too much health. Or defense, I'm not entirely sure. Both of the Godskin... both of the Foreskin brothers have this problem. Yep, there's the Godskin Duo. Both of them have this problem. Where they either have just a bit too much health or a bit too much defense. But... unlike the Godskin Noble, the Godskin Apostle is actually very fun to fight. I really like the Godskin Apostle from a design perspective. I'm going to put him in B, though, just because it's not an incredible fight. Elmer of the Glue Factory, as I like to call him. It's Elmer of the Briar. I don't care. He's Elmer of the Glue Factory. I really liked Elmer of the Glue Factory. Not A tier at all. I'm going to put him at B, actually. I didn't like him A tier, but I liked him B tier, if you will, because he's just got a way of being able to fight you at almost any range. Mid-range, he's got some closer psionic tactics. Distant range, he can just get his sword all the way out there, and even then, if he wants to get in your face, he absolutely can. He can charge you from across the arena if he wants. But unlike some other examples where things will charge across the arena, he telegraphs it pretty well. It's a big shield bash that he'll do. And for that, I think that's a good fight. Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy. This is one that's very polarizing, just to me. I don't know how to feel about this one, because it is the evolution of Yorm, from Dark Souls 3, where Yorm was just like, you can barely fight this guy without the cheese weapon, but if you get the cheese weapon involved, then you stomp him. It's a cakewalk. Anyway, Rykard is like an evolution of Yorm, where even when you have the cheese weapon, it is not easy. You still have to deal with this thing. It basically is a bullet hell boss fight. Like... there's just stuff flying at you constantly, and that's cool. I think that's neat. I'm gonna give him A tier. I put him in B tier last time, but thinking on it further, I like him more in A tier. I don't like him S tier though. It's just the whole gank and not being able to use my build against a boss. Gank. Why did I say gank? There's no gank. But primarily not being able to use my build against the boss, I don't like that. I have a problem with that. The Fire Giant. This thing is hilarious. The first time I saw it just hurl over and roll away from me like a giant version of me, it was so jarring. It was like, oh, bye. I'll see you later, buddy. As he just leaves. And it's the rolling, from a gameplay perspective, it's the rolling that makes the Fire Giant interesting, because if he was immobile, he'd just be a big lug for you to sit there and beat on. But because he's mobile and in such a big arena, he becomes something where, yes, you might have to chase him down a couple of times, but he will not spam it. I have not once had a fight where he just spams it. The biggest problem with the Fire Giant is he has too much health. I don't know why, but he has one of the girthiest health bars I've ever seen, other than Rykard, who has like 59,000 hit points. But he has so much health. It's just a grueling task to get through it. I think they should, whenever they patch the game again, I think they should give him just a little bit less health, And then it's an S tier fight. But because he's got just a bit too much health, I'm putting him at A. F. So the Valiant Gargoyles they essentially guard Ainsel River Main. And they're stupid. This is From Software trying to do the gargoyles again, obviously, for the Belfry Gargoyles from Dark Souls, which was like, it has always been a heralded fight because it's a balanced gank. These two are not a balanced gank. And the biggest reason for this, and the sole thing that makes me hate this fight so much, is how they spit out a poison damage floor. It's not just like a poison cloud that will poison you over time. It's you stand in this area and you take constant damage, and you will probably be staggered occasionally. It's just so infuriating, on top of the fact that they will poison you. And if both of them spit a poison floor at the same time, you have no recourse but to run away, basically halfway across the battlefield, just to get away from this damage floor. It's so obnoxious, and it completely forgoes anything that made the original Gargoyles such a good fight. F tier all day. The Mimic tier. I want the Mimic tier in A. I love the Mimic tier. I love the idea behind it. It's too easy again because, like, if anyone knows how to play my build, it's me and not the AI. Equally, it's not stupid. It kind of, like, oftentimes it'll take advantage of the things it notices about your build, which is super interesting. But if your build is based around any particular tactics, it probably won't think of those. One of the best examples I can think of is on my current stream playthrough where I'm running it with just a torch. It didn't really know how to handle that. It didn't know what to do. So it started just one-handing it, and there's nothing in the offhand in that run. So it's literally just trying to whack me with just this one-handed torch. Meanwhile, I've got so many buffs to my like jump attacks that it doesn't know about. So it can't take advantage of them. So I just basically get to sit there and freely whack it until I kill it. Granted, it almost killed me because I wasn't paying attention because of the breath attack. Because I honestly, I always forget that the steel wire torch can do the thing. But I think it almost killed me with that, if I remember correctly. It might have killed me with that, actually. I don't remember. So that's a good reminder that even easy bosses can still kill you if you're careless. Yeah. I love the Mimic tier, and I love the idea that unlike something like Dark Link, there's no like moral implications. In Zelda 2, when Dark Link first showed up, there was some kind of like fight the darkest parts of yourself. Here it's like, no, this thing hates you, and once you dead, fight it. But also it knows everything about you. It's just a doppelganger. Let's go. Which is really cool. And I love it as a summon. That is such a cool idea for a summon. Easily my favorite in the game, and probably most people's favorite. It's just so cool. Godskin Noble D. And that's basically, no, that's not all I have to say. This thing reminds me a lot of Bob from Tekken, in that it is a big guy that is incredibly fast, and it's infuriating because he's got so much reach, he's got so much speed behind him, he's got so much defense. I'm pretty sure like knives will just bounce off of him. I'm not sure, but I feel like I remember that happening a couple of times. It's just... And then in phase 2, he'll start bloating and doing this rollout attack that tracks perfectly. So, unlike a lot of things where if you're fast enough you can avoid it, no, it tracks too well. And you will be hit at least once, if not twice, by this attack. Because it also just goes for so long. I hate the Godskin Noble, and I think it's bad and dumb. And that's basically all I've got for it. So now we've got Godfrey, the Golden Lord, and Horalu. This was kind of irritating, I'm not gonna lie. I don't love Godfrey. I don't hate it. It's not a terrible fight. It's just, It's got a lot of mechanics that are just not fun to deal with. It's got some... Pretty much the entire moveset is massive AoEs until Phase 2, where most of the moveset is grapples. I honestly, Phase 2 might have like 3 moves, if I'm remembering correctly. It's not... It's just... I don't know. It's not a super fun fight. It's not a super good fight. It's not a super terrible fight. I'm going to put it in C+, just because it's better than Commander Niall, but it's not as good as any of these. It's just... Now, I didn't even know this one would be on this list. The gank of the Crucible Knight and the Misbegotten Warrior. F. What were they thinking when they did that? That is absurd. That is the stupidest gank. It's so dumb. It's just like... There's a reason it feels a lot like 2 enemies that were not meant to be together were stuffed in the same room. It's because it's 2 enemies that were not meant to be together stuffed in the same room. It's stupid and ridiculous, and it's basically the Leonine warrior, or the Misbegotten Warrior, may as well just be a normal enemy for how many times he shows up. No, he always shows up at least in a mini-boss kind of encounter, but... No, this is terrible. This is awful game design. Morgot the Fell Omen. Morgot is super cool. I love that fight. And the big reason for how good he is because he's early game. If he were a later game fight, we'll get there, it would not be nearly as good. But because it's early game, because he displays a fair amount of difficulty, because of just the way he moves, the way he talks to you. It's such an interesting encounter, and it feels like you're fighting some kind of honorable warrior, even though I'm pretty sure in the lore you're not. I'm pretty sure this guy... I don't really know the lore, but I'm pretty sure he's not supposed to be some kind of honorable warrior. But again, I don't know. When he pulls out the big hammer, what is it even called? I don't remember what the big hammer is called. I've used it. But when he pulls that out, you start to be like, oh, that's not stick. It's... And the funny thing about his phase changes, it's pretty subtle, which is really cool for, like, a Phase 2. He basically just adds something else onto his previous moveset instead of gaining an entirely new moveset. And one of the big things I think he does for, like, not necessarily newcomers, but I think one of the best traits about him is actually what he does for veterans of the Souls games, Soulsborns. And it shows you just how much enemies in this game like to hold their attacks. They like to have long wind-ups to their attacks, and he displays this very well, and it's super useful for him being one of the first enemies to show you that trait. That's super thoughtful game design, and I'm going to put him in A tier. Next, we have Star Scourge Radon. I have very mixed feelings about Radon. I think... So, the entire encounter is supposed to be about the spectacle. He's built to be like a raid boss. He is not built for you to take him on solo. And the primary reason I can confidently say that is because of Phase 1 being, the arrow rain. The arrow rain is almost impossible to avoid if you're too close to him. It makes the fight just infuriating just to start. And one of the big things about it is, even if you're summoning, that makes starting the fight take even longer. So there is no version of this fight that is, quick to try again if you fail, leaving it as a boss that I personally would rather just overpower than deal with normally. But The spectacle of the whole thing is incredibly cool. The whole raid boss aspect of it is super unique for a FromSoft game, and even if you treat it like that, it's still a challenging fight, partially because of getting windows to hit because of how much he moves, but also because of how hard he'll end up hitting by the time you've summoned like the 7 guys that help you. So because of the spectacle, I'm going to put him in B. And the reason he's not going in A or S is because I think the difficulty is unbalanced. Lich Dragon Fortisax. Okay. I have not actually fought Lich Dragon Fortisax. From my understanding, it is basically just another dragon fight. From my understanding. In fact, I'm actually gonna talk about Flying Dragon Agil before I talk about Lich Dragon Fortisax. Because if it is just a dragon fight, then I feel exactly the same as I do Flying Dragon Agil, because all of the dragons are practically the same. And all of the dragons are frustrating to fight. One of their biggest traits that is just a problem as far as game design is the fact that they are so insistent on jumping and flying away from you that I've experienced it too many times where they will straight up just leave the battlefield and disappear and respawn. That happens to me so frequently. And when they do that, they'll completely lose aggro. Fortunately, their health doesn't reset, but their aggro resets, their placement resets, everything about the fight resets when they just, especially like Flying Dragon Agil. I've seen him just hop up to where the northern Agil Lake site of grace is. And when he does that, about 5 seconds later, he just, whoop, and I'm like, what happened? It's infuriating. And not to mention that even if they don't do that, they spend a large portion of the fight just out of range. And that is so frustrating to deal with. It's just, no. I feel very negatively about the dragon fights. Not negatively enough to say like D tier, but C- is pretty good. And from my understanding, like I said, actually, you know what? Yeah, from my understanding, like I said, Lich Dragon Fortisax is just another dragon, so I'm going to put him right there. Dragon Lord Placidusax. Placidusax is an interesting topic. He's essentially... He reminds me a lot of Lorien from Dark Souls 3 in one particular way, and that's his teleporting. The big difference is that, like, Lorien isn't that big and isn't that fast and doesn't hit that hard. So, Lorien is a lot more fair with his teleporting. And equally, a lot of times, if he doesn't go too far away, the lock-on will actually keep up with Lorien. Dragon Lord Placidusax, when he teleports, he'll just straight up disappear for a few seconds and then reappear. Meaning the lock-on will go away completely and you have to start wildly swinging the camera to try and look for him. Then we get into the fact that when he teleports, when Lorien teleports, he will immediately come in charging an attack, but his windups take so long, for the most part, that you can predict them before they happen. And like I said, the camera is a lot better in that fight. Dragon Lord Placidusax is basically camera the boss fight in a lot of cases. It's somewhat infuriating to deal with, but the trade-off to that is that Phase 2, because of this teleporting, if you can tank a couple hits, if your build can tank 2 hits from it without dying, then he's an incredibly fun enemy. Because you're going to be hit. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, because of how frequently he will teleport and how fast things come out. Without luck or perfect reactions, like picture perfect reactions, and probably both, because you'll need to be lucky to be looking at him when he reappears. So without luck and perfect reactions, you're going to be hit. But if you can tank a couple of hits, then going toe-to-toe with it is pretty fun. However, another caveat to it is how often he'll teleport. He'll go into this one mode, and I don't know if it's like a phase or something, but he'll go into this one mode where he'll teleport, attack, teleport, attack, teleport, attack, teleport, attack, teleport, attack. It's just constantly going, and you do not have a chance to counterattack. You only have the time to dodge. Which is very frustrating. But the grandeur of fighting a thing literally called Dragon Lord, the lightning and fire being flung about the place, there's a lot of atmosphere to it. And in general, until he gets into Teleport Central, he's a pretty fun fight. So I'm still going to put him in A, not S. He's too annoying for S. We get to Morgot, the Omen King. So for the most part, I had only ever fought Morgot, like with a Ash summon, Ash Spirit, whatever. And for the most part, when there's two people on him, his behaviors will actually completely change. He doesn't quite act the same when there's two people. When there's just one person, he will do these crazy ninja flips to get away from you. He spends a lot of time barely out of reach, and when he gets out of reach, he will start charging an attack. Meaning, you don't have a lot of time to counterattack. You don't have a lot of time to actually fight him, which is very frustrating, which is why I never fight him without summoning. But with a summon, it's one of the cooler fights in the game. I do not feel comfortable putting it above B tier, though, because of the solo problem. Moog, Lord of Blood, has to be in D tier. C-. I'm going to put him in C- because it's a fine fight, but it's marred by one major flaw, and that is the completely unfair phase change, where he will just completely bleed you. I don't think he'll even build the meter. I think you just bleed instantly. He'll just boom, 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 build up the bleed meter 3 times, which will kill you if you don't heal through it. You have to heal through his phasing. And whatever amount of health you lose, he adds to his own health, which, comparatively speaking, at like 99 vigor, you still have under 2,000 hit points. So, it's not super bad. It's bad, but it's not like super bad for him to do that. But it is problematic enough that the game, you can't even like iframe through this. It will happen to you, and you do not have a way out of it. And because of that, he has to go into C-. I don't think he's quite as bad as like the Godskin Noble. I think the Godskin Noble is much more irritating, but it's pretty egregious. Malekith the Black Blade. Once again, I'm putting him in C-. The big problem with Malekith, and we touched on this a little earlier, is his nature of staying away from you in the air. Now, Malekith will usually spend most of his time jumping and in the air. And if he's not doing that, he's landed for about 10 seconds so he can let off an AoE that you have to get away from. So because of this ends up being a fight where you have almost no time to counterattack. Now, there's an even bigger problem with not being able to counterattack him here than there is with not being able to counterattack against... Who was it we were talking about? Was it the Red Wolf? I feel like it might have been the Red Wolf that just leaves and you don't really have the time to counterattack. It was someone. It might have been the dragon. I don't remember. But he actually has basically a full health bar. Well, no, that's not true. He has he has two phases. There's phase 1, which is the Beast Clergyman, who's kind of irritating to deal with, but not too bad. It's fine enough. But then he'll go into Malekith, and for some reason his health buffs when he turns into Malekith, and I don't know why. He'll usually respawn with about 3/5 of his health bar, instead of the under 50% where he usually shifts. But because of this, because of his solid defenses, it's not like the Red Wolf where when he gets in close, when you finally get your chance to counterattack, you can kill him quickly. That's not happening with Malekith. It'd be a lot more fair if it was. When he's on the ground, he acts a lot like Lorien, except when he hits you, you start to just lose health. He leaves a lingering effect that's basically like the fire damage in Skyrim, where it just leaves health loss on you for a little bit. That I'm almost certain just bypasses your defenses. And to boot, like I said, he will not stay on the ground for very long. And he will constantly be firing these things from the air. It's just frustrating and nothing else. Actually, I'm going to put it in D. No, yeah, I'm putting it in D. It's not quite F tier, I won't say, but it sucks. Via's Champions, C-. It's just 5 dudes, and there's nothing else to really say about it. It's at least cool that they come in waves. That's super, not only very helpful, but unique for a gank fight like this. So, it's not like the gank squad from Dark Souls 2. It's this. It's a very unique fight. But I don't have anything else to say about it because it is just 5 dudes. Radigan and the Elden Beast. The other tier list had these as 2 separate entities, but in here it's actually more fair to count them as one because they are technically phase 1 and phase 2 of one fight, even though they're completely different entities with very different movesets. I like the Elden Beast a lot. The Elden Beast is one of the few that I'd consider for S tier. Radigan is only fine. I don't mind Radigan. I don't hate Radigan. I'm going to put them in A tier. Mostly because of Radigan. Actually, no. The Elden Beast is also A tier because its one big flaw is that it spends a lot of time just out of your reach. It's one of those again, except once you get back into it, it won't move out of your range again for a while. So you get your chances to counterattack. The Godskin Duo. Oh, wait. That's about how I think of them. Easily the worst boss fight in any FromSoft outing. I think this is genuinely significantly worse than the Bed of Chaos, because at least the Bed of Chaos is unique. The Bed of Chaos is unique, has a pretty rich lore behind it, and is at least an interesting idea, even though it wasn't executed well. The Godskin Duo is 2 of a prior boss that are like, and very clearly from the visual design, they're trying to be Ornstein and Smough too, but they're not. They're garbage. It's like they were trying to do Ornstein and Smough again, except Ornstein and Smough, genuinely speaking, Ornstein and Smough was lightning in a bottle. And they will never do that again. They will never succeed at that format again. Because, genuinely speaking, I think it is an accident that Ornstein and Smough was good. And even then, I have a lot of problems personally with Ornstein and Smough. I don't think that one's as good as most people do. but I don't think it's a terrible fight, obviously. It's still one of the best in Dark Souls. I just don't think it's, like, anywhere near the best. But they've tried to do that so many times. There was Throne Watcher and Defender. There was, was there an attempt at it in Dark Souls 3? I don't remember. Nah, not really. There probably was an attempt at it in Bloodborne, but I can't think of it. But they've tried to do this style of boss fight so many times. And even in Elden Ring, they do it all the time. They try to do these two-person gank fights where it's like one big slow guy and one small fast guy. Like the Leonine Misbegotten and the Crucible Knight. The Crucible Knight's, well, a big tanky guy. He's not that slow, but he's not half as fast as the Leonine Misbegotten. The problem therein being that they're both still fast enemies. The Godskin Duo is small fast, big faster. The Godskin Noble, we've already talked about it, is too fast. So to pair him with the Godskin Apostle in a boss fight is asinine. It's ridiculous, and I don't understand where they get off deciding these two are the ones that need to be paired together. Yeah, below F tier, in my opinion. Just way below F tier. You can't even see the words. I didn't think about that. There we go. Just garbage. Absolute trash. And if they weren't necessary, I wouldn't fight them. Even in like a 100% run, I would consider the run just fine without them in it. The Regal Ancestor Spirit. I love this thing. I don't love it more than A tier because once again, it's too easy. The Regal Ancestor Spirit is a little too easy. It's not fast enough to be able to keep up, and it doesn't deal enough damage for its slower speed to be, a balance. It's just too easy. But what it offers is cool factor. This thing is super cool. It's another boss that can spend it a little bit of time away from you, but it's a lot like the Red Wolf of Radigan, where it will do half circles around you instead of just flying away from you. And that's the best way to handle a flying enemy, is that they stay in your face even though they're getting away from you, because it'll just fly away, put a damage floor on the ground, and then land behind the damage floor, so you kind of have to backpedal a little, go around the damage floor, and get back in its face. I wonder if you can jump over it. I don't think I've ever tried that. I'll have to try that at some point, but genuinely, this is such a cool designed boss fight that is marred by being a little too easy, being a little too slow, I would say. Magma Worm Macar. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and put Magma Worm Macar in F tier, and here's why. Magma Worm Macar is, for all intents and purposes, easy. It is an easy fight, but it's also super annoying. It is one of the most annoying boss fights, and literally live on stream I told you why, and I'll reiterate, because the first thing you see upon entering the boss room is nothing happens, and then you step a little further in, and the health bar shows up, the music starts, and you still don't see anything until you see this big lizard trapped behind this pillar and shoving its face into the pillar until it can finally clip around it. Which very clearly demonstrates that this arena was not built for this boss. It's so stupid and it's hilarious. Yeah, F tier all the way. And even after it finally fixes its pathfinding issues, it doesn't get better because this is another boss that spends most of its time running away from you, just leaving the battlefield. Bye! Except when it leaves, it's hard to chase it back down because it leaves a lava damage floor behind it. So that means you have to wait for this damage floor to go away, which takes what? Oh, I want to say about 20 seconds to disappear, in which time it's already started another attack. So it's genuinely impossible sometimes to get a chance to counterattack, despite the fact that it's not moving. It's so infuriating to fight this thing. Because it's easy, because mechanically it's an easy fight. It's just so stupid. Ah! So anyway, what is this one? Oh, the Leonine Misbegotten. C+. He's fast. He's not very tough. He doesn't hit super hard. He's fine. That's all I got. What is this one? Oh, Sir Gideon Ofnir. A tier. This guy is hilarious. So the thing with Gideon Ofnir is that he does not do basically any melee attacks. Instead, he is practiced in all schools of magic, from incantations, pyromancies, dragon incantations, sorceries, blood sorceries, hexes from Dark Souls 3, even though they're not even in this game. Just every variety of spell he is versed in. And once he gets going, the fight becomes bullet hell. It's genuinely just, things are constantly flying all over the place, and you have to look for chances to counterattack without giving him the opportunity to just blast you. It's such a cool idea for a fight, because aside from that, it's also just a regular sized guy. So it's a lot more like a PvP fight, except it's a PvPer that's brokenly powerful. It's just such an entertaining bout. Is this Astol? Oh, this is Astol. This is our 1S tier. I love this fight so much. It still has the problem of, in my opinion, being a little too easy. And I've heard from a lot of people that he has just broken hitboxes on his grab attacks. I've never really personally experienced this problem, and equally, I've been grabbed by him once in the 3 or 4 fights I've had with him. It doesn't do that much damage, and he doesn't do it more than once. At the very least, he doesn't successfully do it more than once. So I don't see that problem. And equally on the accusation of being too easy, it's still more difficult than most things that aren't down here. It's still much more difficult than most of the things that are down there. Mostly because of his AoEs his AoEs aren't exactly ridiculous, and for the most part, they're just based around timing. Granted, some of his AoEs, you're going to have a bit too hard of a time dodge rolling through. So, I dock points for that. But in spite of that, just the visual design and the arena design, just everything about this thing is so cool to me. It's a Bloodborne boss, really. And I'm biased because I think Bloodborne is still the best Souls game. Or Soulsborne. I guess I don't really have much more to say about it other than it's just probably... It is, in my opinion, the best thing in the game. Although that is highly subjective. I'm not going to say it is objectively the best thing in the game. But subjectively, it's my favorite thing in the game. What is this? The Dragon Soldier? The Dragonkin Soldier. That's not even the one of Noxtella. That's the normal one in Siofra River. Why isn't the Dragonkin Soldier of Noxtella on this? Okay. The Dragonkin Soldier... C-. It's just a big guy. It really is just a big guy. It feels like a bit of an evolution of the trolls you've been fighting for the entire game. But just deals a little more damage and has more reach. That's basically it. That's everything I have to say about him. This is the full-grown Falling Star Beast. I'm gonna put this thing in C+. Beforehand, I think I had it in B, but I'm dropping it a little because it's another one that spends its time kind of running away from you. And the funny thing about that is it does not do that intentionally. It starts doing this Matador bull charge thing, and when it does, it'll just run past you. Equally, the fact that literally no damage type literally no damage type will damage it unless you hit it in the face. Or not damage it at all, but damage it meaningfully unless you hit it directly in the face. Those two things kind of mar it enough for me to dock points. Then we get to Malenia. Malenia, there is a lot to talk about. I don't want to push this video over an hour, but there's a lot to talk about with Malenia. The biggest things being the simple fact that if it were not for two aspects, Malenia would be S tier. Malenia would be one of FromSoft's best boss fights if it were not for two specific aspects that honestly don't even need to be gotten rid of, just need to be nerfed a little. And those are, the first and foremost, in my opinion, the first and foremost is actually the, what is it called even? The Swan Dance? I don't remember what it's called. The Beyblade attack. The big circle thing where she just flurries all around her and chases you with it. It is so infuriating when she starts that up, because what ends up happening is that it's practically impossible to dodge. It's practically impossible to dodge all of it. Because of how long it lasts, the fact that there's 3 of them, there's 4 of them, and how fast and well it tracks. It stays right in your grill the entire time it's happening. And it goes just far enough that you can't actually, dodge roll out of it before it starts. You can't iframe through basically any of it. You are getting hit by this move. There is no argument. You are at least getting hit by a little bit of it. And the second problem that stacks with the Beyblade attack is the fact that she heals every time she hits you. And what's super egregious about that is that it's not she heals a percentage of the damage dealt. She heals exactly 300 to 400 hit points every time she hits you. So even if you block her attacks, she will heal off of it. So it is a bad idea to go into this fight defensively. Now, what I like that on paper. I actually like the healing mechanic on paper. Because it forces you into a super aggressive playstyle where you can't really turtle. You have to get in her face. You have to hit her constantly. But what that ends up turning it into is, can your build stagger her? No, you lose. You just lose if you can't stagger her and or bleed her. I have not fought her with bleed yet, but I bet bleed could handle it at least somewhat. The other thing it ends up turning it into is just a game of summoning a meat shield so that you can get in, so that the both of you can stagger her together. Because without a meat shield, it's kind of impossible. Just straight up. Well, no, it's not impossible. Someone better than me obviously could do it. In fact, people have, I'm sure. But as far as I'm concerned, it's damn near impossible. And there's not even a level of getting good that can save you. It's mostly luck. And then the phase 2 being able to cause Scarlet Rot, honestly, not that much of a problem. I think she has less defense in phase 2, which is super helpful. But my personal experience with every time I fought Malenia is I put Shabiri's Woe on a Mimic tier, so that she focuses on that while I beat her in the back. And what ends up happening is that the Mimic tier will somehow just bum rush half of her health in phase 2 immediately upon starting it. I will, immediately after she does the big flower thing, I will notice that a quarter of her health is gone. And I'm like, where did that go? Did she lose it? Or did my Mimic tier just beat the shit out of her? I don't know. But that's generally my tactic for fighting her, is put Shibiri's Woe on a Mimic tier. And both of the times that I've gotten to her have been fairly tanky builds. So tanky with, big weapons. The one time that I've actually beaten her was I had the Great Sword in my right hand and the Zweihander in my left hand. Both of them plus 25, both of them heavy, and with like a strength of 80. So I was beating the shit out of her. And me was not doing worse. But the fact that I had to resort to that is kind of a problem because, like I said, if you can't stagger her, you probably lose. Equally, if it was not for those two problems, like I said, that'd easily be F or S tier. Because of that, I can't in good honesty, put Malenia in F tier. Because there's enough that is good about the fight that it could counterbalance what is what is just the worst about it. But I don't know. I don't know that I feel good about not putting it in F tier because with those two problems, it's one of FromSoft's worst. Not in trash that should feel bad. Not there. I think I have to go with my gut and put her in F. I don't really have much of a choice. And there we go. That is my Elden Ring bosses tier list. I'm super glad that I re-recorded this because this speaks to the game's quality a lot better than the other one, because the other one had a bunch of the ones that were just at the end of mini dungeons that were just rehashes or two normal enemies thrown in a room together. I literally had a tier on that list that was normal enemies. But this one's way better. If you enjoyed, then don't be afraid to leave a like. Don't hesitate to subscribe. Go check me out on Twitch. I'll put that at the video end card. A link to my Twitch channel, where I've been playing Elden Ring, but with just a torch. But I'm about to move on from Elden Ring. I'm getting antsy. I'm ready to move back to something else. I might do Dark Souls. Might do some Pokemon stuff. I don't know yet. But one way or the other, I'll see y'all next time. Thanks for watching and goodbye.